Hey guys, and welcome to Tutorial Thursdays. Today's video is classes. What class should you play? What is counterclassing, and why is class balance a good thing? To start off, classes. There's 9 of them in Team Fortress 2. The Scout, the Soldier, the Pyro, the Demo Man, the Heavy, the Engineer, the Medic, the Sniper, and the Spy. Together they make up 9 different mercenaries or classes that you'd be able to play. Now, you may be wondering, what class should I play? I'm just beginning. Or I'm a veteran and I want to try something new. Well, let's take a look at things from a beginner's standpoint. These will determine what difficulty it is for a beginner to learn the class. The Scout. He's a medium introductory difficulty. He's got a high speed, but he's got low HP. He requires a lot of hit and run tactics. So aim is required with him. If you're not aiming well, he can get overwhelmed pretty fast in a fight. The Soldier. Easy, he's a well-balanced class. He's got medium speed, a medium HP, his weapons are strong and have great diversity, having a rocket launcher for a projectile weapon and a shotgun for a hit scan weapon. And you don't need great aim with him due to his rocket launcher having splash damage. The Pyro. This is another easy class. He has medium to high speed with a medium HP pool, and he has a close range weapon that requires no reloading. His aim isn't very required due to spraying his flames will cause people to usually panic. Hit and run tactics, however, will increase his difficulty learning curve to a medium. However, it's not fully required if you learn to stick around your team. The Demo Man. He's a medium difficulty to start off with. He has a low speed, a medium HP pool, but all his weapons are explosive, which are easy to spam, but require a bit of prediction to figure out where the enemy will be going. So, aim's not fully required, however, being able to learn to predict where the enemy will be will make it a lot easier. Heavy. This is an easy to learn class for anyone. He has a slow speed with a high HP pool. He has a high damaging weapon for medium to close range. And he doesn't require a lot of skill to pick up right away. Great for a beginner just starting the game. That way you can be in there and survive just a bit longer than other classes. Engineer. He's a medium difficulty. He has medium speed with low HP. He builds defenses and supplies for teammates, and he requires a lot of teamwork around him. Without teamwork, he becomes an easy target. However, his buildings can supply defenses, transportation, and health and ammo to your teammates, so never underestimate the Engineer. If you're new, he may be a little bit more difficult. If you're a bit of a veteran, you'll know where you should build up. The Medic. He's a low to high skill due to 2 things. It's easy to play just the healing medic, but when it comes to battle medic, that's when the difficulty really starts to ramp up. And when it ramps up, it's really difficult. He's got a medium HP pool with a high speed, and he's used to being behind his teammates and not being the one fighting. So, he's great for beginners to see how the game operates to a degree. Sniper. This is a high difficulty learning curve. He's not like other snipers from other games. He has a medium speed with a low HP. He requires great accuracy and understanding of map layouts. Without understanding how the map works, or where everything is on a map, it makes it very easy for you to be counter-sniped yourself. And lastly, the Spy. This is a high difficulty class. He has varying speeds based on the disguise he wears. He has low HP, and he requires a lot of map knowledge, how classes operate, and how not to be seen by the opponent. Now that you know the basics of what a class is able to do in terms of difficulty of learning them, how do you pick the one that's right for you? Well, that comes down to varying degrees of, have you played shooters before? What other types of games have you played before? Are you a veteran to shooters, or are you brand new? Is this your first game you've ever played of Team Fortress? What type of roles do you like playing in other games? Do you like to be the big aggressive guy, or do you like to help from the sidelines? This really helps determine what class would be suited for you. If you like being aggressive, a soldier, demo, or heavy might be more suited to you. If you like helping your teammates, a medic or an engineer might be just what you need. It's up to you to determine what do you feel is your type of play style. Go ahead, experiment. You may find you like one class way more than other classes. So, enjoy learning what class does well for you. Just sit down, think about it. What do you like? What's good for you? Next, we have up on our list counterclassing. Now, counterclassing is the act of having a class that counters your class or another class on your team. As an example, the Spy is the counterclass to the Sniper and the Engineer. However, the Pyro counters the Spy, and so does the Scout. With their high speed and ability to be able to track him easier, you can always figure out more. For a Heavy, his counterclass would be the Sniper. Long range, doesn't get within the gun's range, and he can kill him with one shot. Also, the Spy can counter the Heavy because he stabs him in the back for a one-hit kill. That 300 HP pool is nothing to the Spy. Now, what happens is, if you get countered by a class that is supposed to counter your class, don't get mad, don't switch to their class, just keep playing. That's what's going to happen. If your class gets countered by your counter, it's going to happen. And you shouldn't get upset. However, your class will always be able to counter something else as well. So, let's take the Engineer for example. His counter, being the Spy and the Demo Man, means if I get stabbed or have my buildings blown up by them, I shouldn't really get angry. I expect that to happen. However, I can counter those classes through using loadouts or having my teammates around to balance that out. Now I counter as an Engineer Scouts that get within my sentry gun's range because they're low health. Pyros, they're low range, so they can't get within the range of the gun easily. And I counter a lot of people just through area denial. However, every class still can take down my sentry, which would be soft countering. Hard countering would be a Demo Man or a Spy. Their weapons were built with me in mind. So, now that you know a bit more about counterclassing, we want to make sure you understand it. So, we'll give a few examples of class, and you try and figure out what classes counter that. You play as Pyro. Who do you counter? Your enemy is a Heavy. What should you play? You and your opponent are both soldiers. Now, if you're wondering, why would I choose both me and my opponent to be soldiers? That's because, well, soldier counters soldier, but has no real hard counter. Soldier's mostly a soft counter. So, when it comes down to counterclassing, a team will always be able to counterclass the other team. You just need to play smart. So next we have class balancing. Why is it good? Well, first let's define class balancing. Class balancing is making sure your team has at least one of every class or a fair balance of classes, even if all 9 aren't there. This comes also with the term of class stacking. Class stacking is the act of stacking a single or a few classes, but nothing else. What this causes is imbalances. If you stack all of one class, you deny yourself abilities of counterclassing other classes. So if your whole team stacks Pyro, you're all at short range, meaning you can be easily counterclassed by classes that can shoot from far range and classes that use bullets. If all your team goes Engineer, all you are is setting yourself up for a demo man to come along and destroy everything, medic or no. So it's all about thinking smartly when it comes to this. So let's break this down even further. My team consists of one of every class. We have 9 players. The enemy team consists of 9 players, but is stacking a few extra of different classes, losing out on a scout and a demo man. So their team now has 2 extra of another class that is causing them to lose some abilities. Now what this will do is make it easier for us to find those little holes and counter them even harder through it. So if they stack 2 snipers in exchange for that 1 scout and 2 heavies for that missing demo man, they're susceptible to snipers and spies a lot more. So, a basic class counter to everything here is we stick with our 9 and they're losing out on 2 things: traps and high damage output from the demo man, and being able to keep a cart going at a higher speed with less people on it from the scout. Overall, they lose a lot for just 2 players. Now that you know what a basic example is, let's take a 12-player server. It's 12v12. A good idea would be having one of every class, an extra medic, and 2 extra of something. However, one team decides to stack a bunch of snipers and spies because there's 12 people. Surely someone else will fill in that role. Now that there's extra spies and extra snipers, they're actually losing out on extra power classes or support classes that are useful. And with a high increase of snipers and spies, their opponents become more aware that there is more snipers and spies around. So, let's take this example here of, we know they're spies, we know where they're at. What do? We have a pyro. That pyro is able to counter multiple spies, along with me being able to know to look around and watch my back. Class balance can really affect the tide of a game. When a game becomes highly unbalanced due to class stacking, it's best not to just immediately think everyone should go the counter class. People should still remain diverse. However, they should be more highly aware of what is happening to be able to deal with that. When it comes to competitive type games, you'll never have to worry about class stacking. There's rules set in place and player limits that help remove the class stacking difficulty, such as Highlander, which is a 9v9 competition with only one of each class allowed. Or there's 6v6, which allows only 2 scouts, 2 soldiers, a medic, a demo as your base core. However, you can add in one of any other class by switching out one of your other classes. So, when it comes to competitive, class stacking and balance isn't usually a problem. The smart players will know that stacking a class is really bad, but newer players who don't know better are going to stack the class they see usually at the top of the leaderboards. Oh, that guy's spy? Well, then I should be spy. Why? I'll make more points that way. Not a great mentality to have, but I know where people are coming from with it. So, if you see people class stacking, just try and figure out what they're doing. Are they new, or have they got some skill under the belt and they're just trying to one-up someone else? Class stacking is a disadvantage, not an advantage. So, just keep that in mind, that class stacking isn't the best idea. And since we have a bit of extra time, let's talk about why team composition is usually a good idea. Team composition is sort of like class balancing. However, it's acknowledging that a certain player has more skill within a class than the other, and that causes class stacking to become null and void. If your team goes to the class they're best at and works their hardest, they'll be able to deal with class stacking and be able to push you back to a spawn sometimes. So, if your team is comprised of really good players who play each class, one of everything, extremely well, it's going to be a lot harder for you to be able to do anything. So having a great team composition will always give you a better advantage. Whereas just playing whatever you want, sure, it'll be fun, but losing games is still high up there. So, let's take a quick review of what we've actually learned. Stacking classes, bad. Being class diversified, good. Choosing your class may not always be the easiest thing. However, choosing a class may be just as tough. But experimentation and learning and practice will always triumph. So you learn to balance your classes, choose a class that's right for you. Everything will become much easier. And when it comes to counterclassing, don't get angry. If you got outplayed by your class, that's your hard counter, you shouldn't get upset. It's when you're countered by classes that really shouldn't counter you. However, everyone does have a gun and everyone can kill everyone. So, you need to be careful. So, Thanks for tuning in to this episode of How Do I? Classes Edition. Next week we'll start talking about the classes individually and go into much more deeper detail, starting with the Scout. So, thank you all for watching. If you thought this information was useful, subscribe for more tutorials. We do sentry placements on Saturdays and tutorials on Thursdays. And, if you really do enjoy, join the Steam community group. You can use the discussions there to discuss more about classes, engineer positioning, and whatnot. It's free for everyone to join, and it's fun. There's links in the description below. And thank you all once again for watching, and I hope this video was helpful and makes it easier in your future endeavors.